When should we add Microsoft, or Bing as it was formerly known, ads to our PPC strategy, if at all? Microsoft advertising is something that I believe has a lot of businesses scratching their heads. Should we do it? When should we do it? How much should we do it with? What can it actually do for our business? And so forth. According to Microsoft's very punchy sales page, apparently if you're not doing Microsoft ads, you're missing out on lower CPCs, higher qualities of traffic that Google just doesn't get, and access to more searchers. Beyond these bold claims, the data suggests that Microsoft has 20% market share in the UK for desktop search traffic, and in the US, the numbers are slightly different. Google has 69% of market share for paid mobile clicks, and Microsoft has 29%, leaving the other 2% to other. There are some other enticing aspects to using Microsoft ads as well. To begin with, they have an import feature from Google Ads, quite literally. You sign into your Microsoft ads, then you log into Google via API, and you import your Google Ads campaigns to Microsoft ads, and essentially duplicate them, and you're good to go, right? So it's literally a copy and paste exercise. So it's a very accessible thing for businesses to get started with. Another enticing feature is that Microsoft's policies and rules and regulations are generally more lax. As the market leader, Google is extremely strict when it comes to advertising in certain areas like firearms, anything to do with medical, anything to do with cannabis, politics, etc. Now, I'm not saying you should go to Microsoft ads if you want to run an advertising campaign to sell AK-47s to toddlers. But sometimes Google does get in its own way with its policies and perhaps, paints every business with one brush in a very broad industry when you're not actually doing anything wrong or selling anything that you shouldn't be selling, but Google make it impossible for you to sell through them. These claims, statistics, and other positive elements make Microsoft ads a very compelling case, right? On paper at least. So why do more businesses not flock to it? Why is it not higher up in people's priorities? These are the questions that we're going to dig into and find out if it's suitable for you. So based on our experience, we'll give you the truth behind these claims, statistics, and other well-known facts. To address the first point, it is true that a comparable click often costs a lot less with Microsoft ads than it would on Google search. So a comparable click really just means, let's say you sell Canon cameras. And if you're bidding on the keyword Canon cameras on Google ads and also on Microsoft ads with a search campaign in the same target geography, and all these other similar factors for the same position, generally speaking, that click could cost you anything up to half price discount on Microsoft, which is really quite impressive. So if that click for Canon cameras cost $10 on Google, it would cost $5 on Microsoft ads. Now, I'm not saying that's guaranteed and will happen every single time or to that extent, but broadly speaking, in the use cases where we have had to do that, it has worked. As for their claim for having higher quality, that's questionable. Their match types for search campaigns and keywords are a little more lax, and the way their algorithm works to match user queries in real time to the keywords that you're bidding on, we have found that's a bit more lax and can result in more junk traffic if you're not careful. So I would say at best, quality is comparable and even. So with the cheaper cost of traffic, it is still a win. Now, another reason Microsoft ads are not necessarily always at the top of someone's shopping list is frankly because the professionals don't like working with it. When I say professionals, I mean, pay-per-click, PPC, online advertising, freelancers, contractors, or even agencies like ours. Now, we're fully capable of working with it, but it's a pain in the butt. It's just harder to drive, it's clunky, it's buggy, things aren't where they're supposed to be. And it's particularly frustrating for us because Microsoft do try to copy Google, even in the sense of their interface. I mean, Microsoft copy Google in every which way you could imagine, right? Campaign types, innovations, reports, algorithms. It's frustrating because as far as like the back end, management of the campaigns, they try to copy the interface design and functionality of Google. but they always get it just that little bit wrong. So it's clunky. Now, this isn't necessarily a valid reason for a business not to be doing Microsoft ads, right? It's still achievable, it's just clunky in terms of usability. But it may explain why your agency, contractor, freelancer, or in-house PPC team are not necessarily jumping straight in with Microsoft for your PPC strategy. Two more reasons that Microsoft ads are not necessarily at the top of everyone's wish list is that their innovations are generally 6 to 12 months behind Google's. So in a scenario where Google is sort of leading the pack and therefore leading the innovation and direction of your campaign types for your business, if Microsoft is 6 to 12 months behind, you're constantly managing a sort of version 1 and version 2 of your pay-per-click presence and strategy. And this can become frustrating at times. And then the final reason would be that objectively, Microsoft are much more limited in their campaign types and available strategies for you to deploy. In a world where very much multifaceted PPC strategies are becoming the norm, and what that means is, doing lots of different things like search, display, remarketing, Gmail ads, shopping ads, video ads, etc. In a world where that has become the norm, and having a mix of brand awareness, brand consideration, and brand action is important with fractional attribution, for Microsoft to really only be able to prop up its offering with search campaign types on Bing, essentially, and Yahoo, it's very limited. And they do have a couple other things, and they try their best at having their own version of shopping, but it's just nowhere near as comprehensive. And of course, they don't own YouTube. Now that I've shared some pros, cons, and just objective points of view and facts with you about Microsoft ads, let's try to dig into what might be suitable and what this means for you in your business. Now, there is no one-size-fits-all answer to the question of should we be doing Microsoft ads, and if so, when, how much, what type, etc. But we can try to sort of drill down to different types of businesses and figure this out. If you have a small business in a niche in perhaps a somewhat limited geographical area, like one town or one city, it's probably not likely that Microsoft ads is going to add any value to your pay-per-click strategy. The reason for that is, if we think back to the statistics we talked about earlier, so 20% market share for desktop traffic in the UK, 29% for mobile in the US, these are respectable numbers. But sometimes, even for a small business in a small area, in a small niche, it's difficult to even make Google work as the market leader with way more, 2, 3, 4, 5 times the available audience work. So if Google is struggling to make your niche work, Bing automatically is almost guaranteed to fail. It just doesn't have the volume of users and demand that you need to run a successful campaign. Now, if you have a sort of medium niche, something a bit more well-known, popular and common, in a bit of a larger area, like a larger city or a state or a region, or perhaps the entire country, Bing ads, or Microsoft ads, I should say, probably is worth a try for you. I would look at it as a complementary feature to what you're already doing, perhaps on Google and Facebook, rather than something that's going to be, transformational. So it's worth bolting on, seeing what happens, and you'll probably get some degree of bonus traffic, bonus sales, bonus conversion from it. Now, if you have a huge niche in a huge area, so something that's very, very popular and very common over a very large geographic expanse, such as an entire state, half the country, the entire country, it's very much likely that Microsoft ads can play an important role in your PPC strategy and future success from online advertising. Even with its smaller market share, let's say of 20 to 30%, generally speaking, it still can be more than enough for your business. And in some cases, it's so much that if the CPCs are cheaper and the performance is better, you might not even choose to do Google ads and do Microsoft ads instead. And then finally, as we touched upon earlier, regardless of size and niche and geographic targeting, if you sell something that Google just doesn't like for its policies, then Microsoft ads by default is really your go-to place for search advertising, because let's be honest, there really are no other options. So I hope you can understand, going through these different options and scenarios, that my recommendation is predominantly based on addressable audience. When we talk about small niches or geographic areas and market share, all it really boils down to is what is practically feasible. The combination of your business type, industry and size and geographical reach. Does Microsoft have a sufficiently large audience for you to run a meaningful campaign? Agnostic of business type, size, industry and geographic reach, Generally speaking, my preference has always been to run Google first and add Microsoft later. This is because with Google's advanced technologies, larger audience sizes, and therefore speed to reaching peak performance optimization, it's generally just quicker and easier to establish a campaign on Google, and then, like I talked about earlier, import it over to Microsoft and essentially double down on what you have with Microsoft's available market share. Another reason that you might switch to Microsoft Ads is that Google Ads can reach a point of saturation or diminishing returns. So even with their greater market size and addressable audience size, at some point when you're starting a Google Ads campaign, then optimizing it and scaling it up and increasing your investment, at some point you will either tap out the available market share, or to move from 60% market share to 70% market share, the traffic just becomes too costly and your cost per acquisition becomes out of control and non-profitable. So therefore, even though there is more available, you cannot find a way to pursue it cost effectively. So whenever you reach that point, again, it's just a complete no-brainer to bolt Microsoft Ads onto your strategy to get that 10, 20, 30% additional, essentially market share, just from a different place for your PPC strategy. So like anything, the most important thing is to let the data do the talking for your business. Like any PPC tactic, Microsoft Ads is probably worth a try at some point in your PPC journey. Don't be too put off or persuaded by any of the claims, pros or cons. The only way to find out if it has a place in your strategy is to try it, get the first-hand results and primary data for your business, and let that do the talking to inform your future decisions. So we wish you all the very best of luck. We thank you for watching. If you found this useful and informative, please subscribe, like, share, and we'll see you next time. Take care.